I was between 8 and 10 years old, lounging on the sofa in our cozy living room, the soft glow of the TV casting flickering shadows as dusk settled outside. It was a typical evening, with the comforting routine of cartoons and family chatter filling the air. The house felt safe, familiar, a haven from the mysteries of the world beyond our walls. Little did I know, that evening would forever alter my perception of our home. As the last rays of sunlight slipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the windows, I was completely absorbed in the TV show, oblivious to the supernatural encounter that awaited me. Suddenly, I saw her, a ghostly bride gliding through the living room, her presence surreal and otherworldly. She wore a tattered wedding gown that flowed around her like mist, shimmering faintly in the dim light. Her hair, once adorned with flowers, now hung loose and disheveled, framing a pale face that bore an expression of eternal longing. The air around her seemed to still, as if time itself had paused to witness her spectral form. The room fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the soft rustle of her gown as she moved with a haunting grace. Her gaze was fixed ahead, distant yet penetrating, as she ascended the staircase with ethereal steps that made no sound. As she passed through the living room, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. It was then that I heard it, a faint whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls. "I am getting married," she murmured, her voice echoing through the silent house with a haunting clarity that sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, as I watched her vanish into the darkness of the upper floor. Her words lingered in the air, a cryptic message that left me trembling with a mix of fear and fascination, forever marking that night as the moment I confronted the inexplicable in our home. I froze, unable to move or even breathe, my eyes locked on the apparition gliding through the room. The air around me grew heavy with an unsettling chill, as if the very essence of fear had materialized before me. She didn't acknowledge me, her gaze fixed ahead as she passed through the living room as if I didn't exist. Her ethereal form shimmered faintly, casting shadows that danced across the walls. Despite her silent passage, her presence filled the room with an overwhelming sense of dread. My mind struggled to comprehend what I was witnessing. Was this real? Was I dreaming? Every logical explanation crumbled in the face of the supernatural. The confusion and terror surged within me, a turbulent whirlwind of emotions that left me trembling. As a young child, the boundaries between reality and imagination blurred in the presence of such a haunting spectacle. I felt small and powerless, confronted by a world beyond my understanding, where the normal rules of existence seemed to bend and warp. It was a moment that shook me to my core, leaving an indelible mark on my perception of the unknown and unseen. That night, and for many nights after, I couldn't sleep, haunted by visions of the ghostly bride. Her image lingered in my mind, appearing in the darkness behind my closed eyelids whenever I dared to close my eyes. Her whisper echoed in my ears, a haunting refrain that refused to fade. The effect on my daily life was profound. Every corner of our home felt tainted with her presence, shadows morphing into her ethereal figure in my mind's eye. I avoided being alone in rooms where I had seen her, fearing her sudden appearance once more. The once familiar spaces of my home now held an air of uncertainty and unease. I sought answers desperately, my young mind grappling with the supernatural encounter. I tried to confide in adults, seeking reassurance or explanations that could make sense of what I had witnessed. Some dismissed it as childhood imagination, while others offered superstitions and tales of spirits that wandered between worlds. But none of their words could dispel the fear that gripped me, nor the unsettling feeling that the ghostly bride had left a mark on our home, perhaps seeking something beyond my understanding. The search for answers became a quest for reassurance, a journey into the unknown that would shape my perception of the paranormal for years to come. Even as an adult, the memory of that evening remains vivid, a chilling reminder of the inexplicable and the unknown. The image of the ghostly bride and her haunting whisper continue to linger in the recesses of my mind, a testament to the enduring impact of that supernatural encounter. Over the years, I've tried to make sense of what I saw that day. I've read countless stories of paranormal phenomena, spoken with experts in the field, and explored theories ranging from the scientific to the spiritual. Yet, the ghostly bride remains an enigma, a puzzle with pieces that refuse to fit neatly together. I've come to accept that some mysteries are not meant to be unraveled, that there are forces at play beyond our comprehension. The encounter with the ghostly bride taught me humility in the face of the unknown, reminding me of the vastness of the unseen world that exists alongside our own. While I may never fully understand the nature of that spectral visitation, I carry with me the certainty that it has shaped my perspective on life and the supernatural. It's a reminder that our world is filled with mysteries waiting to be discovered, and some encounters leave an indelible mark that transcends time and reason.
It was just another ordinary night, or so I thought. The streets were quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. The occasional car passed by, but otherwise, everything was still. I was just walking home from work, the same route I always took. The routine was comforting in its familiarity, a mundane end to a long day. As I walked, I couldn't help but notice how the air felt different, almost charged with an electric tension. The night seemed darker than usual, and the usual sounds of the city were strangely muted. I shrugged off the unease, attributing it to fatigue. Little did I know, something was about to shatter the ordinary and plunge me into a waking nightmare. As I turned the corner onto Maple Street, I saw him. He stood under a flickering street lamp, an unsettling figure shrouded in shadows. He was tall, with a gaunt face that seemed to be etched with years of hardship. His eyes, dark and piercing, locked onto mine as I approached. There was something off about him, something that made my skin crawl. I tried to walk past him without making eye contact, but he stepped into my path, blocking my way. His clothes were tattered and stained, and his hands, which hung limply at his sides, were covered in strange markings. When he spoke, his voice was low and almost hypnotic. "Stretch out your arms," he commanded. I was hesitant, every instinct telling me to run, but something about his voice compelled me to comply. Slowly, I raised my arms in front of me. His eyes never left mine as he started making peculiar gestures with his hands, as if he was weaving some invisible thread between us. I felt a strange tingling sensation in my arms, but before I could react, he stopped. Without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. I stood there, frozen and bewildered, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My arms felt heavy and strange, but I shrugged it off and hurried home, hoping to forget the bizarre encounter. I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread as I continued my walk home. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Who was that man? What did those gestures mean? I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see him following me, but the streets remained empty. By the time I reached my front door, I was exhausted, both mentally and physically. I tried to convince myself it was just a weird encounter, something I could laugh about later. I double-checked the locks on my door and windows before heading to bed, my nerves still on edge. As I lay in the darkness, I couldn't stop replaying the incident in my mind. The man's eyes, his voice, the strange gestures. It all felt surreal, like a twisted dream. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I drifted into a restless sleep, hoping that the morning would bring clarity and that my fears would prove unfounded. When I woke up, my arms felt strangely sore. I thought it might just be the lingering tension from the night before, but as I rolled up my sleeves, I gasped. My arms were covered in deep, fresh cuts that looked like they'd been made by a sharp blade. The cuts crisscrossed my skin in a chaotic pattern, some of them still seeping blood. The sight of my own blood sent a wave of panic through me. I had no memory of how they got there. It was as if the cuts had appeared overnight. Frantically, I retraced my steps from the previous day, trying to remember if I had hurt myself somehow, but nothing made sense. I hadn't fallen or cut myself on anything. The encounter with the strange man flashed in my mind, and a cold chill ran down my spine. I ran to the bathroom and began cleaning the wounds, my hands shaking. My thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and fear. How could this have happened? What did that man do to me? The sense of dread from the night before returned, stronger than ever. I knew I had to find answers, but I didn't even know where to start. Desperation took hold as I tried to find an explanation for the cuts on my arms. I considered everything from sleepwalking to a supernatural occurrence. I scoured the internet for similar experiences, hoping to find some clue that would make sense of the madness. But the more I searched, the more questions I had. There were stories of mysterious injuries, strange encounters, and even curses, but none of them offered a concrete answer. My thoughts kept returning to the man from the night before, his eerie gestures, and his unsettling presence. Fear and paranoia began to consume me. Every noise made me jump. I couldn't help but feel like the man was somehow connected to what had happened. I started avoiding that route home and made sure to never walk alone at night. I checked the locks on my doors and windows obsessively, but the sense of being watched never left me. Days turned into weeks, and the cuts eventually healed, leaving behind faint scars. But the mystery remained unsolved. To this day, I still don't know what happened that night, but every time I see those scars, I remember the man and his strange gesture. The fear still lingers, a dark shadow that haunts my thoughts, a constant reminder of the inexplicable encounter that changed my life forever.
When I was a child, I often saw spirits where I lived. Our house was old, creaky, and filled with shadows that seemed to move on their own. The walls whispered at night, and the air always felt just a bit colder than it should have. The spirits would appear in the corners of rooms, or sometimes just out of the corner of my eye. They were always there, watching silently, their presence a constant, eerie backdrop to my childhood. At first, they scared me. I would hide under my blankets, hoping they would go away. But as time went on, I started to understand that they weren't there to hurt me. They were just there. I even grew a bit accustomed to their presence, almost seeing them as a strange part of my home. One night, though, was different. One night, I saw something that left a mark on me forever. I remember waking up and seeing a figure standing right next to my bed. It was a shadowy silhouette, darker than the darkness around it, its features obscured yet somehow distinct. I was terrified, frozen in place, unable to scream or move. The air around me felt heavy, as if the room itself was holding its breath. I could feel its presence, a chilling sensation that sent shivers down my spine. My heart raced, and my mind raced even faster, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. In that moment, fear gripped me like never before. I wanted to cry out for help, but fear held my voice captive. All I could do was stare wide-eyed at the figure, hoping it would vanish as quickly as it had appeared. As I grew older, I started to understand that these spirits meant no harm. They were perhaps lost souls, lingering in our world for reasons unknown. I learned to coexist with them, acknowledging their presence without letting fear take over. But that night, that encounter, it changed something inside me. It made me realize that not all spirits are benign, and that some encounters leave a lasting impression no matter how much time passes. For years ago, something happened that shook me to my core. It was a night unlike any other, one that still sends chills down my spine when I think about it. I woke up suddenly, startled from a deep sleep by a suffocating sense of dread. The air in my room felt thick and oppressive, as if a storm was brewing inside the walls. I lay there, trying to shake off the feeling, but it clung to me like a shadow. And then, I felt it, a presence behind me. It was so close that I could almost feel its breath on my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, but fear held me paralyzed, my heart pounding in my chest. I strained my ears, hoping it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, I heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper, so close that it felt like it was inside my head. "I want." The words trailed off, leaving me trembling in the darkness. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape the terror that gripped me. But all I could do was lie there, trapped in a nightmare made real, praying for morning to come and banish the darkness that had enveloped me. Then I heard it, a whisper so close it felt like it was inside my head. "I want," it said, trailing off into silence. The words hung in the air, heavy with an ominous weight that sent a chill down my spine. Panic surged through me like an electric shock. This wasn't like the spirits I had grown accustomed to from my childhood. This felt different, dark, malevolent, and filled with an unsettling desire that I couldn't comprehend. I lay there, paralyzed by fear, my mind racing with questions. Who, or what, was speaking to me? What did it want? The room felt colder, the shadows deeper, as if the very fabric of reality had shifted around me. I wanted to scream, to run, but fear held me in its grip. I could still feel the presence lingering, watching, waiting. It was a terror unlike any I had ever known, a primal fear that threatened to consume me whole. It was hard to sleep after that night, especially being alone in my room. Every shadow seemed threatening, every creak of the floorboards a potential harbinger of unseen danger. The memory of that chilling whisper haunted me, replaying in my mind like a sinister echo. I tried to rationalize the experience, seeking logical explanations that could ease my fears. Maybe it was just a vivid dream, or perhaps my mind playing tricks on me in the darkness. But deep down, I knew it was something beyond rationalization, something inexplicable and unsettling. I sought solace in research, delving into paranormal phenomena and similar encounters. I spoke with others who had experienced the inexplicable, hoping to find answers that could bring peace to my restless mind. Yet, the more I searched, the more I realized how little I truly understood. To this day, I can still hear that whisper in my mind, a constant reminder of that night's terror. Every time I sleep alone, I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me, waiting in the shadows. The fear remains, a lingering presence that refuses to be dismissed, leaving me forever changed by the chilling encounter with the unknown.